Welcome. This is going to be my complete guide to raid benchmarks. In this video, I'll show you how to find your rotation, practice it, and then do a benchmark of yourself. So the first thing I want to talk about is food. Opinions differ here, but I do think it is worth running food. Simply because it does make a difference, and most of it's not that pricey. So I'll start with power, since I'm not powered. The budget power stone oil is superior sharpening stones. Now notice there are two versions. These ones last 30 minutes and cost 9 silver, and these ones last an hour and cost 10 silver. So I would always buy these, unless you specifically only want 30 minutes of stuff. So these are utilities. The power food is fairly expensive, unfortunately. So I can offer a couple recommendations. First, if you have the ability to craft, the ascended food is actually pretty cheap to make. Even just buying mats, I think it's, I don't know, like 30 silver or something. So I have some in this guild bank. It is cilantro lime sous vide steaks. If you run those will give you the same numbers as the benchmark. The food that Snow Crows typically uses is the sweet and spicy butternut squash soup, which you can see is half a gold. If you can do it, it's not too bad, but if you can make the ascended, I think it's a cheaper way to get practice. You can also, as a final note, run some food from the Roll Your Roll Provisioner, but this will give you substantially less DPS, so I would only fall back on it if you don't have the 50 silver to spare. This is the closest equivalent, and you can see it's substantially less good. 100 power, 70 ferocity versus 80 precision, 60 ferocity. So that's the power foods you would run. The condi foods, which is what I'm going to buy, are red lentil salbosas are the cheap condi food. They're pretty good. So I'm going to buy one right now to do these benchmarks. And the budget oil is the tuning icicle. And I'll buy one of those as well. If you're practicing a boon class, you would obviously run the food that boon class runs. But this advice doesn't apply to you in exactly the same way, since you don't practice in quite the same way. So I'm going to take the food. Let's head over to the practice room. So you can see I'm in the aerodrome. Where we have to go is to the Special Forces training area. It's located up here next to the bank. And you can't just walk in. It's locked if you try to enter by yourself. You have to be in a squad. The good news is you don't need to have a tag to be able to create a squad. If you go up here or click L, you can create a squad even without a tag. If you don't have a tag, it will be a 10-man squad by default. But if you do have a tag, make sure to turn on raid mode. So now that I have that all set up, I can enter the Special Forces training area. And let's get started actually doing the benchmark. Now before we start, I'm going to give myself some swiftness so this doesn't take forever. Before we start, I want to show you where the information is. Because more than watch this video, you can go to their website and it will tell you everything. I am following the advice of a group called Snow Crows. Their website is snowcrows.com. They build these DPS builds and provide the benchmarks. So if you go to benchmarks, we'll see how to set up a benchmark. And after benchmarks, you can click on buffs. And here it will show these are the buffs and condis they use when they do benchmarks. So if you want to practice appropriately, you want to match them. So you'll notice here that they apply these specific 7 boons in their benchmarks. There are a few classes that scale their damage based on the number of boons, and if you're playing one of those classes, you want to apply exactly these 7. I am not, so I'm going to be lazy, and I'll show you how to do that. Sometimes being lazy is okay. So in Area Console, you go to Adjust Self, add boons, and you see you could add specific ones, but I'm going to just add all of them. Easy. The next one is profession-specific enhancements. So you'll notice here that this will let you for most groups. You'll have access to some ranger things and some warrior things. So from range, you have Frost Spirit, Sun Spirit, and Spotter. Let's add those. Adjust Self, add profession-specific enhancements. I understand. And then Ranger is right here. So I'm going to give myself Sun Spirit, Frost Spirit, and Spotter. And then the other one was Warrior. And from Warrior, we need Empower Allies, Banner of Strength, Banner of Discipline. Empower Allies, Banner of Strength, Banner of Discipline. Good. So now you're all set up. And if you look, you move your weapon, you have Quickness, you have Alacrity. Those can really affect your rotation. So you always want to practice with those boons on. Now we want to make a Golem. So if we go back to Snow Crows, they have some advice on running just 10 conditions because these classes scale based on the number of condis. So if you're playing one of these classes, you should apply exactly these 10 condis. If you're not, then you can just apply all of them. And since I am not, that's what I'm going to do. So if you go to Adjust Golem Settings, Add Conditions, And then again, you could add them specifically, but I'm going to add all of them. All right, so now let's get to actually spawning the golem. If you go to spawn a golem, typically you want to use a huge hitbox. The Snow Crow's benchmarks use a huge hitbox. This makes sure that any skills that might have RNG in their placement don't have that RNG. And let's talk about the health pool. As you're practicing, I'd recommend spawning a fairly strong enemy, just because you want to have plenty of time to practice. I think if this is your first time doing your rotation, you're going to need to spend at least 30 minutes, because some of them are pretty complicated to learn. And even if you are experienced, I would still spend a good 20, 30 minutes just to get it in your fingers, because the more you practice, the better you get, and the better you know it, the easier everything else is. So I would spawn a 40 million thing just for practice. I'm going to spawn a 1 million HP because I don't want this video to last too long. But you will probably spawn more, and of course if you kill it, you can also end. So I want to show you one more thing before we get started, which is this skill. So let's say you start and you're like, oh no, I messed up, I want to start over. One thing you can do is just run away. Oh, I already have swiftness. And get out of combat. So now I'm out of combat. You can use the Mushroom King's Blessing, which will reset all of your cooldowns and let you start again. All right, so now that that's done, I want to show you how to extract the numbers and share them. So your benchmark you will find on the page. So if you go to Raid Builds and then click on your class, I'm playing Guardian and I'm playing Condi Firebrand. The Snow Crow's website has a lot of info about these builds. It shows you all the correct gear to run. If you're not running the correct gear, you won't do as much damage. But as a general rule of thumb, Ascended weapons and trinkets matter the most, and exotic armor is almost as good as Ascended. And of course, the build right here, the traits and skills, and the big one I'm looking at is the rotation. Snow Crow's has a video for all of them. Some people find them very helpful. You should watch it if you find that kind of thing helpful. I actually like watching the written one better. I find this more helpful. And one advice I can give you is that start with the loop. You can see this looks really complicated, but you're going to be using your loop for the whole fight, and you'll be using your opener exactly once every fight. So I would practice the loop. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little lazy, and I don't even learn the opener for a lot of these classes, because it just doesn't matter. If the boss goes on long enough, your opener damage was basically irrelevant. So I'm going to real quick go through some of this damage on this golem, and then we'll talk about what to do with the results. So you do some damage. My rotation looks kind of like this. See, I already messed it up a little bit, which is not a huge deal. You can see, by the way, what you wouldn't normally want to do a 1 million health golem, because I'm going to kill this golem in like a very short amount of time. So I'm not really going to get to practice. I'm just doing this again because I want this video to be not that long, because I don't want you to sit here watching me practice my rotation for 10 minutes. So there we go. I'm almost ready to go back into my tome. And there it is. I killed the golem. So, oh yeah, there we go. So these numbers are messed up. What happened here is that the numbers start from the start of combat, so my DPS is incredibly low here. I'm going to spawn one more golem and show you how to get the right numbers. But for what it's worth, you'll see that ArcTPS, if you have it installed, will give you accurate numbers. So I'm going to just spawn a golem, huge, weak enemy. Please spawn it. Let's kill this guy real fast so I can show you how that works. There we go. So now we have an accurate number. And you can see my DPS is only 24k, which is not particularly good, but I'm actually running not the right gear on this character, so that's not so surprising. When you have your results, I want to ask people to share them. The way to share them is to look at this number. So you could just post a screenshot of this port right here, and we'll all see you did 24k. If you want to assess yourself, you usually would do that as a percentage. So I did 2468. And the benchmark that we're comparing to is 32,400. So I would say that I did 74% of Snow Crows. which is a totally reasonable amount. The way these benchmarks work is that the most you'll ever get is 95% because they run stat infusions that account for that last 5%. So if you get in the 90s, you're doing an incredible job. You should be proud of yourself. If you're getting in the 80s, you're doing an all right job, and that's pretty good. You get some more practice, but you certainly know it all right. If you're doing in the 70s, like I am, that's probably a sign you have the wrong gear. But if you have the wrong gear, you're doing a good job of being in the wrong gear, as we saw here. So this was my guide to practicing. What I generally recommend is put some food on your bar. I didn't even use it because I already had some food. But put some food on your bar, spawn a big golem, look at the rotation, and just practice it until you get it. And once you feel like you have it really well down, I would spawn a small health golem, probably 4 million HP. Look at the number down below and share that with the group. Anyway, thanks for watching.